All right, this is Noah DeFreitas here with my co-host Matt Berzacott, and we are doing our Q&A session 4. And I'll go ahead and give you some info for those of you who do not know about Matt. But me and Matt, we've been working together. He's been my friend, my mentor over the last 7 years, and he truly opened me up to the world of bodybuilding. He's been competing since the age of 18 and has done 15 shows since then. He's also been the runner-up at nationals multiple times, missing that pro spot just by one placing on multiple occasions, but he's absolutely pro caliber and is going to nail that pro spot. He's also been a coach, coaching competitors since 2009. His most noted accolade right now is taking Gerald Williams to the IFBB Pro stage within 20 weeks and also qualifying for the Olympia. So I'm super grateful to have Matt here to help answer any of your guys' questions. And what we're doing is we are probing both of our audiences and asking them their own questions because we want to help you guys get to the next level. Because really, what I have found is a lot of us are just missing the information to get to our goals. And that was me. And I see so many of us, we shy away from owning the word bodybuilder. But truly, bodybuilders, they're not somebody who has to step on stage necessarily. That's just one part of the sport. But being a bodybuilder is just transforming your body in any way, shape, or form, whether it's losing body fat, building muscle mass. So if you do those things, you are a bodybuilder. And if you've ever felt like, man, I wish I could look like I want to. Sure, we all have our genetic limitations, but with the right information, I know personally, working with others, Matt knows personally that you can get there with the right information. So if you want to get to the next level, this is the Q&A for you to go ahead and get your questions answered. So make sure to ask your questions down in the comments, subscribe, and we're here to get everybody to their goals. But with that being said, we are going to kick this call off here. We have a few questions from you guys. And again, any questions that you have, directly comment below or message Matt or I. First question here is from Erin McCullough. And she's asking, what is the importance of going to failure on an exercise? Is it even necessary? Should you do it even every set? Are there any negatives to doing it every set? And do you think most people will push too hard in the gym, or are they cutting themselves short? So Matt, let me know if you need me to take that in chunks for you, or if you got the gist there.
No, I got the gist there. Erin's actually been one of my clients for a long time. And she gave me that question. I thought it'd be a good one to share. And I haven't answered it yet for gosh, I think it's pretty evenly split 50-50 on those that train too hard and do too much and those that don't do enough. I think it's pretty even.
Okay.
It definitely is very common in the world of the competitor world. I think it's more so competitors that do too much.
So Matt, quick question for you here. This is for the people who are a little bit newer. What even is failure? And I think even people that know what failure is, kind of is up to interpretation. So what's failure and what's your definition of failure? And what would you say is like just start there. What's failure?
I think there's two definitions for it. There's failure and then there's mechanical failure. So failure would be you physically cannot do one more rep without someone helping you. Even if someone was helping you, like a forced rep or something, you couldn't do another one. That's failure.
Okay.
Mechanical failure is you cannot do another rep with perfect form.
Okay.
So we'll take like a bench press, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanical failure would be when you can't, and this is how I tore my pec and how a lot of guys tear their pecs. You try to get one more rep, so you just completely don't use any energy on the negative, on the eccentric portion, and just drop the bar down and bounce it off your chest and do another rep. that's going past. Mechanical failure would be you stop before you do that.
Okay. So what's the
Which I like.
purpose of it?
Yeah, which I tell people to go more towards mechanical failure on compound lifts.
Gotcha.
I think it's dumb to go, beyond that. You don't want to sacrifice form on compound lifts. There are certain lifts where it's safe to get a little sloppy, like lateral raises would be a good example.
Mm-hmm.
You can be super, super strict, and then once you hit failure, being super strict, you can kind of cheat a little bit, and it's still very safe. If even if someone's a beginner, you're not really going to hurt. You're not going to hurt yourself swinging, doing lateral raises.
Gotcha.
So I guess those would be the two definitions.
So why would somebody go to failure? And what's the opposite of going to failure? So what's the purpose of it, real quick?
The purpose of it is you need to always, you have to stimulate the muscle in order to break it down enough to rebuild it back stronger. So
Mm-hmm.
the more, obviously, beginners, this is something that can be scaled. So beginners don't have to worry about it as much as the more years you put in, right? So once you're experienced, like super experienced, like you and I, failure is the whole reason we're going to the gym. You basically do the first the first 2 or 3 sets to get to that fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 or 3 are to prime you for that last one, the all out set of failure. And I think she asked, did she say something about going every set to failure? Or like she's confused as to like how many sets to do to failure or
So
something?
she's wondering, is failure necessary? So we'll answer that first. And then
Okay.
how many sets to take to failure? Would it be every set? Do you do 4 full sets to failure? Or is it
Right.
just that one set that we just talked about? So she says, is failure necessary? So is it necessary?
For advanced lifters, yes, absolutely. It depends where you're at in your training life. If you're super new, no. Within probably the first 6 months, I'd say even a year of training, I think you're really just trying to become really good at the movement patterns and become really good at the movements, get really efficient at, performing the reps, and you're going to grow like a weed without going to failure. After you have 6 to 12 months under your belt, yeah, it becomes a necessity. And even the research lately that has been coming out has shown that the number of reps don't really matter. It's the intensity, and are you taking a set to failure is what matters to promote hypertrophy, new muscle.
Gotcha.
So it is to answer the question in a yes or no. Yeah, it's necessary once you're past that beginner stage, for sure.
Awesome. So then how many sets would you need to take to failure? Are there too many?
So it depends. Absolutely, there can be too many. So definitely not 4. If you're taking 4 sets to failure, you're not going to failure. I'm going to say it depends, and it depends on if you're just stopping at mechanical failure, like we just talked about. So I'm glad you asked me that question. If you're going
just
to
reiterate what mechanical failure is real quick for those.
So mechanical failure is you cannot do another perfect rep. If you're going to mechanical failure, you can definitely take more than one of those sets to failure. You can take 2 or 3 to mechanical failure and not have to worry about doing too much or overtraining. If you're doing something like, and if you're doing something like things, because you can go beyond failure even too, which we haven't talked about. So I guess there's really three. A common thing I do see a lot with girls, especially, they train too fast, meaning they take super, super short rest breaks, and they're taking like every set beyond failure for whatever reason. And I think it's just been like I guess just the way we were built as humans. Since women give birth, they can just handle a lot more. They can handle a lot more pain than men can. So
totally. So what's beyond failure?
So there's ways you can take a set past failure, whether it's you do a drop set or a strip set, meaning, let's say let's just use lateral raises again. You do the 30-pound dumbbells and you hit failure at 12 reps. Let's say you hit perfect failure, mechanical failure at 12. And then you go past that and you start swinging a little bit and you get 4 more. So you hit, 12 reps plus 4 cheaters. You have now gone to absolute failure. To go past failure, you can do a drop set, put the 30s down, go immediately to the 20s or whatever, and keep going. So that's very common. Another common one is the rest pause method, where we'll just stick with that same example. You're using the 30s, you do 12 plus 4, then you set them down, count to 20 or 30, so 20 or 30 seconds, pick them back up and go again to failure. So that's taking things beyond failure. If you're doing stuff like that, one set of that is plenty. If you're going beyond failure, one set of that is enough. And then the question is, well, do I do that on every exercise? Probably not. Like I said, on the compound lifts, I don't really like using that, because I feel like that's when you're going to be really prone to injury, because you start getting sloppy and you're fatigued. Those are the times where you can get hurt. So squats, bench presses, deadlifts, stuff like that, I advocate just going to mechanical failure and stopping. And actually, you could use maybe rest pause on those safely, but that's for people that are like super advanced. Like people that are, the more people that we're talking to, I would just stick with mechanical failure for 1 or 2 sets. That's plenty.
Okay.
If you're going beyond, though, if you are someone that's advanced and listening to this, if you're doing that, 1 set max per exercise, and maybe like, you could maybe do that in like 2 exercises for the whole training session.
Gotcha. So let me just kind of summarize for everybody here. So there's basically 3 forms of failure, and I'll just kind of start from like the least to the greatest. So the safest form of failure is going to be mechanical failure. So that means you stop after you cannot do another perfect rep. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. And then the second failure is going to be just complete failure, which means that you just can't do any more movement whatsoever.
Using any type of form whatsoever. So just throwing the weight up, being reckless.
Gotcha.
You cannot do any more reps. And then there's beyond failure, where you can do drop sets, rest pause, or if you have a partner, force reps, where they help you get more.
Okay, so let's come up with 2 scenarios here.
Yeah.
Say the complete beginner, not exactly the beginner, but say somebody's been working out for, maybe 6 months to a year to 2 years. How many sets are they going to be taking to failure? And are they going to be doing anything that's like beyond failure?
Well, that's a pretty big gap there. I would say 6 months to a year. Maybe like some, if they have a partner, maybe some forced reps, but I don't think anything beyond that. Because once you hit the 2-year mark, I think you can start doing rest pause and things like that after 2 years. If you've been consistently training for 2 years straight.
Okay.
I think that gap's probably a little bit too big, but
okay.
6 months to a year, I think they could do. It's so, but that's the thing, man. It's so dependent on the person,
Mm-hmm.
Because as you know, training intensity you're going to find is very, very individual. So
Mm-hmm.
like, you might get somebody that, maybe they can't only handle mechanical failure at that time. Mentally, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're just not, they might just not have the toughness developed yet to go beyond that point. So it just depends. But I guess in a blanket statement, 6 months to a year, they could do some force reps, but I don't think they need like drop sets and stuff like that.
Okay. So we're talking about beyond failure there. So you're saying between 6 months to a year, they don't really need to do anything beyond failure, but are they doing anything to just mechanical failure?
Yeah, they're focusing on mechanical failure. Those people I would focus on reaching mechanical failure and stopping.
Is that for every exercise?
Yeah, definitely the main ones. I think, see, that's another kind of a separate topic. I think if you're talking about like isolation exercises, let's say someone's doing leg extensions,
Mm-hmm.
that's a pretty safe. I'm okay. I'm totally okay with people definitely challenging themselves. I don't want people to hear this and think like they'll be in mid set and be like, oh God, I heard that guy talking about mechanical failure. I don't know if I can do it, and they're like on leg extensions and they just like stop because it starts to burn. Like, that's not the message I want to get across. Mechanical failure is still going to be a painful situation. So it just depends on the exercise too. So like if someone's on leg extensions and they want to push themselves, a little past mechanical failure, let's say they just speed the tempo up, because that's typically what you would do on a leg extension when it gets really hard, right? You just speed up the tempo, don't focus on the negative at all. I'd be okay with that. It's such a gray area, these are hard questions to give like a concrete answer to.
Okay. So I have a personal question about this then. So we both, I mean, you actually coach people in person as well, right?
Not right now, but I have a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Personally, I have two, but now I'm a remote coach as well. So how do you handle this sort of scenario with somebody who you're coaching and you're clearly not in the gym? Is it actually going to be detrimental to them? Do they need to have some sort of base knowledge of training? And if they don't, like, what should they do? So tell me kind of how you do that.
That's a good question, because what I do nowadays that I never used to do, when I get new people that are new to training, or even when I get people new, like I've seen you train before. I remember putting you through a leg workout once, actually, like at, what was that gym called?
No, not some
Big
house,
House.
right? Big House.
Yeah. So with you, I haven't done this, but any new people I get, I probably started this maybe a year ago. I make them send me videos of they hate it, but literally if I write a training plan out for them, I want a video of every last set of every exercise.
Awesome.
Because that way I can gauge two things. I can gauge their execution and I can gauge their intensity level.
Perfect. And that's the beauty of technology nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, we could always kind of record videos, but now it's super easy to do it. I personally do it too with any of the students I work with. I tell them to definitely show me their top sets and we can work through it like that. And for anybody that's skeptical about that, do you think there's any like drawbacks to not having somebody in the gym with them, or has that been a successful process for you?
No, that's been perfect. I'd rather them do that, because sometimes they'll be like, should I just get a personal trainer? And I say, no, just do the videos, because I don't know what because personal training, there's such a huge gap of good ones and bad ones.
100%.
I mean, the gap is enormous. So I don't trust another person to be advising someone I'm helping with that, when they can send me videos, and not only that, you're saving them a ton of money and providing a better service for them. There's not, and I don't want to sound cocky, but someone's not going to find someone in person that's going to help them more than I can over the internet.
Yeah.
I don't think. As long as they're okay with sending the videos. Now, that's kind of a red flag to me. If people have a problem sending the videos, that tells me they're probably trying to hide something.
Yep.
You know?
And
because
personally,
I do get people that are reluctant to do it, but like, and maybe they'll say like, well, I'm just not comfortable, or the big one is I don't have anyone to record for me. Well, it's 2020. Everyone has a tripod and is filming shit in the gym now. That's something I've had to get over myself, and all you have to say is, well, I'm sending it to my coach.
Do you know what's funny?
Nobody even notices anymore.
I got a story for you. So I'm out in Vegas and I'll see Jay Cutler in the gym ever so often. And even him, he does it classic style. He'll take a barbell, one of the easy bars, he'll turn it sideways, put his shaker jug on there, and film himself. And he has nobody filming him.
So even Jay Cutler builds his own tripod.
Yep, he does the old school tripod. I was like, hey, man, do you need me to film that for you? He goes, nah, I got this down to a science.
So that's great. Even he doesn't have a tripod. So it's like, I mean, this just kind of segues into a different topic, but just get shit done. Like if your coach is there's a reason why we're asking for this stuff, because I want to see it, because the training is such a huge part of this. And one big mistake I made in the past is I get somebody that competed. I assumed that they knew how to train.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that a lot of them don't. Well, even like a lot of the top guys, like that are you see at USA's or nationals, there's so many gaps in their training that you can pick apart, and they've just gotten their like pure genetics. They've made it that far, you know?
Yep. Yep. And that's super cool that you do that. I've worked with plenty of coaches as well, just, trying to see, who does what. And they will not ask for videos, some of them. They just assume that you know how to train
Yeah.
correctly. And I think it's such a low hanging fruit. I'm sure it's, sometimes it's that barrier like you talked about to get the video. But if you can just, see what they're doing, make a few adjustments, tell them to do those adjustments, and you see all the corrections,
It's huge.
it's
It makes
huge.
a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, a huge difference. If you can just pick someone's intensity, let's say their execution is great, but their intensity is shit.
Mhm.
You correct that one thing and they grow exponentially. But I think most coaches don't do it because it does take a lot of time.
Yeah, that is true. And something that's kind of blown me away just coming from the in-person training realm is I've gotten people to numbers beyond what I would get even in the gym with people. So, sometimes we don't trust, being, whatever it is, miles apart. But really, when you have that dynamic where communication is number one, I got people who are deadlifting 135 and now they're deadlifting 400 pounds. They're squatting 400 pounds.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
this is really cool stuff. So that's super cool
So I
to
want
hear
to
there.
before we move on, I want to answer
Yeah.
this directly for Erin though.
Okay.
Since I know her, I'm going to tell her this just through the camera. I know her personally, and I know that she's more towards the end of the spectrum where she does too much. So with you, Erin, it's and the other thing people spend too. I think they do too many reps on their warm up sets too.
Mm.
You don't need to do. And I used to be this way too. Like I would almost take my warm up sets to failure. I'd be doing like 30, 40 reps on like my first two sets
Oh,
because I
wow.
just like want to get this really good fatigue burn. And you don't need to do that. Let's say what I like to tell people, actually, this is a good point. Pick a number. I don't care what it is, somewhere between 8 and 12. And for that exercise, find a weight that you mechanically fail at whatever number you pick. You can pick 9. I don't care. It's arbitrary. Pick 9 because you're as long as you are plus or minus 2 and you reach mechanical failure within that range, it's going to be productive. So I'd rather pick a number. I pick 8 most of the time, just because if you follow the plus or minus 2 rule, if you hit 6, well, that's still a pretty good number for hypertrophy. If you hit 10, that's still a great number for hypertrophy. So, anything below 6 is kind of you're getting more to the strength realm versus hypertrophy. If your main goal is to gain muscle, you want to be above 6 most of the time. So, pick a number, and then I think that's the easiest way for people to figure out, like, oh, okay, so just your all of your sets before that are just to try to find that sweet spot, that weight where you're going to fail or mechanically fail around whatever number you pick. Because
Perfect.
I can see if you're new, it does get confusing. It's like, okay, I'm doing a warm up set now. It's like people don't know how to progress through a set properly.
Mm-hmm. So are you an
So,
advocate of using kind of working your way to one set to failure generally?
yeah, I'm huge on that Dorian Yates style. So,
Yep.
you're all, however many sets it takes, sometimes that's why I don't even like putting like 3 sets of 8 or whatever.
Mhm.
Because I might do, if you're counting all of your warm up sets, I might do 6 or 7,
Yep.
to find, at this point, it's, and when I trained with Matt last week, Jansen, who's, my coach for those people watching, and Nick Walker, who is a future star, that's exactly what they do too. They'll talk back and forth. Matt will be like, is this the one? Meaning like, is this the one we're going all in on? Because once you get advanced, you can be instinctual like that. I'll be like, I'm not ready yet. I need one more, feeler or feeder, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, okay, the next set, I'm going all in on it.
And then after that set, they're done, right?
And then you're done with that exercise, move on.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it takes me, the further along you get in the workout, I do less warm-up sets.
Mm-hmm.
So my first really, really big movement, it might be 6 or 7 total sets. But once I'm good and warm, I can usually find my target number, by set 3 usually.
Gotcha. So basically you're warming up for that optimal last set. On your first exercise, it's probably going to be more warm-ups because you're clearly not as
you're
warm.
Just not, yeah.
And then the following exercises, you're going to probably do less warm-ups because you're already warm. You're going to choose like those higher weights initially, but you're still searching for that last final all-out set. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of training topics for those listening. If you guys like that, please let us know any more questions that you'd like on training. Go ahead and give us a question in the comments. We'll move on to the next one here. We spend a little bit of time on that one, so we might just get through about one more here. So this is Mitchell Wallen. This is Matt. This is your audience here. So when do you know, so this is a nutrition question, when do you know how to make nutrition adjustments to a client's diet? So here's a broad one, but we'll have you kind of take this away wherever you want to start. We'll dig a little bit into this, but when do you know how to make adjustments and probably when and what adjustments to make? Just start very general. Like, what are you looking for and what kind of adjustments are you kind of typically making to your students' plans?
Depends what state you're currently in. So like if you're trying to gain weight and if you're in versus losing weight or you're in prep, it's kind of very broad. So I guess you'd have to narrow that down first. But I can say I don't really have any, like, as a coach, there's not really like one thing I'm looking at. That's where like the person's feedback comes in. And if you're coaching yourself, this is very difficult to do. So I think that's part of the art of coaching, honestly, where the good ones, that's what they're really good at. That's what Chris Aceto is amazing at. His instincts are, they're just incredible. And for those that don't know who that is, he was one of the original, coaches of bodybuilding, one of the very first ones. He's been around since the 70s. But that's what the really good ones are good at, is we kind of just know, without waiting. The really good coaches are able to make changes before someone stalls, because that gets kind of obvious. It's like, well, nothing's happened for a month, I should probably change something. Mm-hmm. Where that's the point of having a good coach is, you don't want to make no progress for a month straight before someone realizes we should probably change something.
Totally. So let's get this really clear first thing, because I think a lot of people, especially when they're beginners, they assume when they get a nutrition plan that somebody could literally just hand them the plan to say, hey, this is all you have to do and you're going to get into shape. Does that work? Or does it need to be more of like a, you need to actually have touch points and
sometimes that can work, right? Because that's the other, that's why this is such a, like, not a black and white, because sometimes that can work, but sometimes it needs to be a lot more hands-on. I will say this, to going to the other end of that, I think people are often too quick to make changes too. Mm-hmm. They don't give something enough time to see if it works or doesn't work. And that's the debate, is like, how much time do you give something? But I can say, like, if I get somebody new, 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty spot on when I give them the initial plan. I pretty much already know what's going to happen. Like I'll even tell them ahead of time, like, because it depends whatever they were doing before. So like 9 times out of 10 too, it's more food that when I give someone a plan, it's more food than what they've ever been eating. So most of the time I'm going to tell them, hey, you might gain a little bit of weight initially for the first 2, 3, 4 weeks even. But as we go on, it's going, as things start ramping up, and it's going to be hard for you to eat this food. But as you go on and your body gets used to this and your metabolism starts ramping up, it's going to get easier and your weight will start coming down. And that's ultimately what does happen 9 out of 10 times. But
my question here,
it's
Matt,
a tough question. This is a really tough question to answer, honestly, as far as like, what am I looking at to, how do you know when to change something?
this
I
is
think
a
if
question I
you're,
want to ask real quick here is,
yeah,
could you just give somebody, because I get this all the time. I want to know if you get the same thing, is just like, give me the plan. Does it work that way? Could I just give you one single piece of paper saying, eat these 5 things and you will get to your goal? Or do you always at some point, 9 times out of 10, have to adjust the plan throughout their whole program?
hey, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did I break up?
Okay, you're back. Yeah, you like broke up that
Oh,
whole,
okay. So
whatever you were saying.
let me just repeat that. So what I get all the time is somebody that just wants like a diet piece of paper of just like the foods that they can eat to get in shape without any adjustments. Does that typically work, or do you nearly always have to make adjustments to that plan?
You're going to have to eventually.
Yep.
You're going to have to eventually, because I don't know. I mean, maybe we as humans, there's just so many other factors and elements into that. Maybe they don't digest those foods well, or maybe they just mentally get burnt out of those foods. Well, then what do you do?
Hmm.
Um, let's say both of those aren't an issue. You're eventually going to need some adjustments. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'd never do that. I never give people a plan. It's either we're going to work together over a long period of time, or we're not going to work together.
So eventually,
That's the right way to do it as a
yep.
coach. I mean,
And
you can't, we can't just spit out plans and say, good luck, be on your way. That's just, no, that doesn't work. I think just the accountability factor of having a coach is very, very impactful to people.
100%. So what would you say are key signs to where like you need to make an adjustment? Because you'll hear people say like, well, I've been at this weight for 3 months and I don't know what to do. So like when's a red flag or a key sign that you actually have to make an adjustment? Let's say let's just do both examples on a cutting and a gaining phase.
Well, on a prep, you can't be as patient, right? So you're on a
Right.
timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if 2 weeks goes by, it depends how deep you are into the prep too. I mean, at the beginning of prep, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't actually. I shouldn't say that. If you're within 16 weeks of a show, you should be making progress every week, and that's why we do pictures as well, not just scale, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the scale and the pictures are saying 2 different things. Um, I would say if 10 days, 10 to 14 days goes by, or even 7 to 10 days goes by, and you're not seeing visually, you're not seeing improvements. If you're in contest prep, you got to make a change, because you can't sit around and wait because you're on a timeline.
100%.
Off season, if someone's trying to build up, you can be a lot more lenient on the timeline. I would say you can almost take that on a 3 to 4 week basis. So look back at your pictures and what your weight was 3 weeks ago. If nothing has changed, it's time to change something.
Totally.
I think that's a pretty good general rule.
Gotcha. I would totally agree with that as well. So, yeah, I think this is a good spot to end here. We've been on for a little bit, but do you have any last things to talk about? Any comments, questions, or anything to say to the audience before we give them this Q&A?
Gosh, man, don't put me on the spot like that. No, not really. It's just, I just can't emphasize enough, coming from someone that I think it's important. People see people like me and they think that they don't have issues following, with discipline and stuff like that. But, I'm someone that's very open about, in my past, I have had huge problems with discipline. I can 100% say that's why I'm not a pro yet without hesitation. My execution and my discipline isn't as consistent as it has needed to be. And so I think the most important message that I want to get across to people is the plan itself isn't as important as you following whatever plan you have. So I think no matter what, that is the most important factor when changing your physique for sure.
I can attest to that 100%. Even the people that message me, that's probably the first thing I dig into. They'll say I'm not seeing things, and the only thing I'm really searching for is like, how consistent are you?
Yeah.
Really, unfortunately, like this is one thing, and I want to ask you if you agree with it, is your body is almost like your bank account. Like I ask people, how quickly could you go broke? How quickly could you spend, $11,000? Just like
Yeah.
calories, how quickly could you eat too many calories that you're now knocking yourself out of that progress zone? So would you agree that we can sabotage a lot easier than we kind of set out to think about?
Oh God. Yeah. That's a great analogy. Yeah. It's much easier to blow money than save it. Right. So
Uh-huh.
it's much easier to put the calories in than get them out for sure. But I think people have a hard time being honest with themselves when it comes to not only this, but I mean, this could apply to everything. I think people just need self-awareness
Mhm.
overall. Like people will, just because someone has a coach and a plan and they follow it 50%, they tell themselves that they're following it 100%. Like
100%.
people aren't honest with themselves, and that's step one. And that's exactly what you were saying. The main thing I'm trying to get at is, how consistent are you really? Like, don't tell me don't
Uh-huh.
tell me it's 100%. Don't tell me it's 100% when it's 88%.
Uh-huh.
Tell
This
me
is a
it's, probably 80%.
uh-huh. This is
So
this is
but
one
but
I
that goes.
use. I wanna know what you think about this. I say, um, have you been consistent for 14 days solid?
Yeah,
What do you think about
that's good.
that?
I think that's perfect.
Right? And to most people listening, they're gonna be like, oh hell no. Like not
Yeah,
even close. So I think
yeah,
that's a good humbling
exactly.
one that I've been using with some of my students, because us as bodybuilders, especially if you have a show on the line, you got to be at that level. But I mean, sure, 14 days might be like somewhat excessive. I would say like 10 is great, but when you just think of 2 weeks, because I like to think of the weekends, that's typically where we do sabotage ourselves. Is like,
Yeah.
are you thinking about everything that you've put into this so far? And if you can truly say, yes, I've been on this for 14 days, you really probably have a good, basis of consistency. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's great. I'll probably steal that from you.
Good. I try to
Yeah,
think of ways to just make it, digestible. But I think that
yeah,
was
yeah,
a super awesome point to leave off of. Is truly
yeah.
consistency is king. But let's go ahead and wrap up this one. And again, Matt, I appreciate your time so much, man. Just having your knowledge base on here is everything. Really, you cannot, it's one in a million to have somebody who's, done this for so long, worked under the top names, does it himself. So you just being on this is just tremendously valuable. So I appreciate you so much for that. And Matt, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way that they can do that?
Instagram, probably Matt. Just send me a message on there. Matt.Berzicott is my name.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, probably that's probably easier than email even these days.
Cool. So if you have any questions for Matt, go ahead and reach out to his Instagram, send him a DM, and he will absolutely get back to you. You guys can reach me out over on this YouTube channel. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram as well. It's all Noah DeFreitas. But the biggest thing is we're here to help you guys. We want you to crush your goals. We want you to know that it is possible for you to get there. Typically, it's all we're missing is the right information for our specific challenges. So if you love these, go ahead and keep this rolling. Comment below any topics you'd like us to cover. We're willing to go anywhere in this, so you can make it, as wild as possible. We haven't seen it. I mean, we probably have seen it, so we're in it for you guys. But again, thanks so much, Matt, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you.